his strength did not suffice, such as laborating for the king in orgies of illness, wrestling in the giants Antaeus, or tricking Atlas into taking the sky back onto his shoulders. Together with Hermes, he was the patron and protector of Gymnasia and Palestria. His iconographic attributes are the lion skin and the club. These qualities did not prevent him from being regarded as a playful figure who used games to relax from his labors and played a great deal with the children. By conquering dangerous archaic forces, his